You are exhausted because your life has no shape. Your time leaks, your energy bleeds, your peace is constantly invaded, not because you are weak, but because you have no boundaries. Boundaries are not walls. They are sacred geometry, invisible lines that define where you end and the world begins. Everything that lasts, cities, temples, relationships, self-respect, has structure. Everything that collapses does not. This audiobook will teach you how to draw the lines that protect your energy, command respect, and restore order to your life. Listen carefully, because once you see these lines, you can never unsee them.
Chapter 1. Accept this. Everything that has power has boundaries. Power is never random. Power is never loose. Power is never uncontained. Everything that lasts has edges. Everything that survives has structure. Everything that commands respect is protected by boundaries. Look at anything powerful in the real world. A country has borders. A city has zoning. A bank has vaults. A temple has walls. Your body has skin. Nothing valuable is fully open. Nothing sacred is accessible to everyone. This is not cruelty. This is geometry. And yet, when it comes to their own lives, people reject this truth. They want power without limits, peace without structure, respect without rules. That is fantasy. Boundaries are not emotional preferences. They are structural necessities. You do not feel your way into strength. You build it, and strength collapses without shape. Here is the hard truth you must accept early before anything else in this audiobook makes sense. If your life feels chaotic, drained, invaded, or unstable, it is not because you lack effort. It is because your life has no clear edges. Your energy spills everywhere. Your time is available to everyone. Your attention is constantly interrupted. Your emotions are open access. You are not living inside a structure. You are living in an open field. And open fields get trampled. Power requires containment. Containment requires boundaries. Say that again. Power requires containment. Containment requires boundaries. This is not philosophy. This is physics. Electricity is useless unless it is contained in wires. Water is destructive unless it is contained by banks. Fire is deadly unless it is contained by limits. Your life is no different. When you have no boundaries, everything drains you. When you have boundaries, energy accumulates. That accumulation is power. This is why people with strong boundaries appear calm. This is why they move slowly. This is why they are not rushed, frantic, or reactive. They live inside defined lines. Now understand this clearly. Boundaries are not walls you hide behind. They are lines that define ownership. They say, this is mine, this is not, this enters, this does not. Without those lines, nothing belongs to you. Not your time, not your peace, not your focus. And if nothing belongs to you, you own nothing. Most people misunderstand boundaries because they were taught wrong. They were taught boundaries are aggressive, selfish, cold, unloving. That is a lie told by people who benefit from your lack of structure. Healthy systems have boundaries. Unhealthy systems demand access. A healthy body has an immune system. An unhealthy one lets everything in. Boundaries are not rejection, they are filtration. They decide what belongs inside your life and what stays out. If you reject boundaries, you reject filtration. And if you reject filtration, you invite contamination. This is why everything feels heavy. This is why people exhaust you. This is why your mind never rests. Too much is getting in. You need to hear this slowly. You are not overwhelmed because life is hard. You are overwhelmed because you are open. You have no gates, no doors, no closing hours. You are always available, always reachable, always explaining, always accommodating. That is not strength. That is exposure. Now, here is the shift this chapter demands. Stop thinking of boundaries as emotional statements. Boundaries are not speeches. They are structures. You do not argue with a wall. You do not debate a fence. You do not negotiate with a locked door. You accept it. That is how boundaries work. Strong people do not threaten boundaries. They simply live inside them. Weak boundaries talk too much. Strong boundaries exist quietly. This is why powerful people don't explain themselves endlessly. They don't justify. They don't convince. They act within their structure. And over time, the world adapts, because reality always adapts to structure. Chaos submits to order. Noise bows to clarity. People adjust to limits, but only when the limits are real. You must stop asking, is it okay to have boundaries? That question itself is proof you need them. You don't ask permission to lock your house. You don't apologize for closing your door at night. You do it because something inside matters. Your life matters. Your energy matters. Your peace matters. And anything that matters must be protected. This chapter is not asking you to do anything yet. It is asking you to accept something. Accept that boundaries are not optional. Accept that openness is not virtue. Accept that structure is not cruelty. Accept this core truth now, because everything that follows depends on it. A life without boundaries cannot hold power. A life with boundaries becomes stable. A stable life becomes strong. In the next chapter, we will confront the cost of ignoring this truth. Because exhaustion is not random, burnout is not mysterious, and your fatigue is trying to tell you something very specific. Your boundaries are failing, and until they are rebuilt, nothing else will work.
Chapter 2. Your exhaustion is a boundary failure. You are not tired because you are doing too much. You are tired because you are allowing too much. That distinction changes everything. Most people try to solve exhaustion with rest, vacations, sleep, breaks. Those help, but they do not fix the source. Because exhaustion is not a workload problem, it is a leakage problem. Your energy is leaking, and it is leaking through broken boundaries. Think carefully about your day. How many times are you interrupted? How many messages pull at your attention? How many requests do you say yes to without thinking? How many emotional conversations drain you long after they end? Each one is a hole. Small holes, constant holes. And over time, even the strongest container empties. You do not wake up exhausted. You wake up already depleted. Because you went to sleep with nothing left. This is what no one tells you. Burnout is not collapse. Burnout is erosion. It happens quietly, daily, through tolerance. You tolerate late messages. You tolerate last-minute demands. You tolerate emotional dumping disguised as urgency. And you call it being responsible, being kind, being flexible. But your nervous system knows the truth. Your body keeps the score. It knows when you are overextended. It knows when you are unprotected. It knows when you are constantly on call. That constant availability triggers stress. Not dramatic stress, low grade, chronic. The kind that never turns off. Because there is no boundary between on and off. You are reachable at all times. You are interruptible at all times. You are emotionally accessible at all times. That is not living. That is exposure. Here's the uncomfortable truth. If people can access you whenever they want, your energy will never recover. Because recovery requires closure. Work needs an end. Conversations need an end. Giving needs an end. Without an end, there is no rest, only pause. And pauses do not restore energy. Boundaries do. This is why rest doesn't work for some people. They rest, then immediately reopen all the same leaks. Same habits. Same patterns. Same access. So the energy drains again. You cannot outrest boundary failure. You must fix the structure. Now let's name the most common energy leaks. The first is instant responsiveness. Responding immediately trains others to interrupt you freely. You are teaching the world that your time has no depth, only surface. Every notification becomes an emergency. Every message becomes a demand. And your mind never settles. Second leak. Emotional overfunctioning. You take responsibility for how others feel. You try to fix moods that are not yours. You absorb stress that does not belong to you. That is not empathy. That is self-erasure. Third leak. Over-explaining. You justify your no. You soften your limits. You negotiate your own needs. Every explanation drains energy because you are trying to manage reactions instead of enforcing structure. Fourth leak. Unclear availability. You don't define when you are available, so people assume you always are. Undefined access becomes unlimited access. And unlimited access destroys recovery. Now listen carefully. Exhaustion is not weakness, it is information. It is your system saying, there is too much coming in. There is no containment. There is no protection. Your job is not to push through it. Your job is to close the leaks. This is where people resist. They say, but people need me. But this is my job. But I don't want to disappoint. Here is the reality. When you are exhausted, you are already disappointing yourself and eventually everyone else. Because drained people become irritable, resentful, reactive. They snap. They withdraw. They disengage. Boundaries prevent burnout, so resentment never has to speak. You need to hear this clearly. Energy is not infinite. Attention is not infinite. Emotional capacity is not infinite. Only ego pretends it is. Structure is humility. Boundaries are honesty. They say, this is how much I can give. This is where I stop. This is where I recover. Now here is the behavioral shift this chapter demands. Stop asking, "Can I handle this?" Start asking, "Should this have access to me at all?" Not everything deserves your energy. Not everything deserves your response. Not everything deserves immediacy. Delay is a boundary. Silence is a boundary. Unavailable is a boundary. You do not owe everyone your nervous system. When you close leaks, something powerful happens. Your energy stabilizes. Your focus deepens. Your presence strengthens. You stop living reactively. You start living deliberately. And people feel the difference. Because drained people feel weak even when they are competent. Contained people feel solid even when they are quiet. This chapter is not about doing less. It is about allowing less. Less interruption, less emotional access, less urgency imposed by others. Because every boundary you install is energy returned to you. And energy, once contained, becomes power. In the next chapter, we will confront a dangerous illusion. The illusion that being nice is harmless. Because niceness without boundaries does not create love. It creates resentment. And resentment destroys relationships from the inside.
Chapter 3. Nice people without boundaries become resentful. Niceness is not the same as kindness, and without boundaries, niceness becomes poison. This chapter may offend you. That's good. Offense is often the sound of truth landing. Most people who call themselves nice are not peaceful. They are suppressed. They bite their tongue. They swallow discomfort. They ignore their own limits. And they call it maturity. But what they are really doing is postponing honesty. Here is the truth no one wants to say out loud. Niceness without boundaries is fear wearing good manners. Fear of conflict. Fear of rejection. Fear of being misunderstood. So instead of saying no, you comply. Instead of correcting, you tolerate. Instead of drawing lines, you smile. And every time you do that, something small but dangerous happens. Resentment accumulates. Resentment is not loud at first. It is quiet, heavy, patient. It builds every time you say yes when you mean no. Every time you give more than you want to. Every time you stay silent to keep the peace. But there is no peace, only delayed anger. That anger does not disappear. It waits. And eventually, it leaks out sideways. Through sarcasm, through withdrawal, through coldness, through sudden explosions that come out of nowhere. People say, "I don't know why I snapped." Yes, you do. You snapped because your boundaries were ignored for too long. By you. Here is the pattern. Nice people overgive. Then they feel used. Then they feel unappreciated. Then they feel bitter. And instead of correcting the structure, they blame the people. But listen carefully. People cannot respect boundaries that were never enforced. You trained them to cross your lines, and now you resent them for it. This is why niceness destroys relationships, because it replaces clarity with confusion. Others don't know where you stand. They don't know your limits. They don't know what costs you energy. so they keep taking. Not because they are evil, but because there is no resistance. Water flows where there is no wall. Resentment is the bill that arrives later. Now understand this. Kindness has structure. Niceness does not. Kindness is honest. Niceness is agreeable. Kindness says, I care about you, and this is my limit. Niceness says, I care about you more than myself. That imbalance never lasts, because self-betrayal always demands repayment, and it collects with interest. This is why people who avoid conflict end up creating bigger ones. Small boundaries prevent large blow-ups. Small no's prevent explosive anger. Small discomfort now prevents deep damage later. But nice people avoid small discomfort. They choose short-term peace over long-term respect. And that choice always fails. Here is the reframe you must accept. Discomfort is not danger. Disagreement is not rejection. Setting boundaries is not aggression. It is alignment. Boundaries allow relationships to breathe. They prevent emotional suffocation. They allow giving to stay voluntary, not compulsory. When you give without resentment, it feels clean. When you give with resentment, it poisons everything. Your smile hides it, but your tone leaks it. Your body language leaks it. Your energy leaks it. And people feel it even if they can't name it. Now here is the behavioral shift this chapter demands. Stop asking, how can I be nicer? Start asking, what am I tolerating that I secretly resent? That question will expose everything. Look at your relationships, your work, your family. Where do you feel drained but silent? Where do you feel obligated instead of willing? Where do you feel irritation that has nowhere to go? Those are boundary violations, unspoken ones. And unspoken boundaries do not protect you. They trap you. You do not need to become harsh. You do not need to become cold. You need to become clear. Clear people do not explode. Clear people do not build resentment. Clear people do not keep emotional scorecards, because everything is handled in real time. Correction replaces bitterness. Now listen to this carefully. If someone reacts badly to your boundary, that does not mean the boundary is wrong. It means the previous arrangement benefited them, and that arrangement is over. Healthy people adjust. Unhealthy people protest. That reaction is information, not a reason to retreat. When you stop being nice and start being clear, something surprising happens. Your relationships improve or end. Both are wins. Because the goal is not to keep everyone. The goal is to keep integrity. Integrity is when your inner limits match your outer behavior. No leaks, no lies, no silent rage. Boundaries are how kindness stays kind. Without them, love becomes labor. Care becomes duty. Giving becomes debt. And debt always demands repayment. This chapter is not telling you to stop caring. It is telling you to stop betraying yourself in the name of caring. Because resentment is not a personality flaw. It is a boundary failure. And until you correct it, no amount of niceness will save your relationships. In the next chapter,
we will confront another illusion. The belief that respect is something you ask for. It is not. Respect is something you train. And training requires lines.
Chapter 4. People treat you according to the lines you draw. Respect is not requested. Respect is enforced. That sentence alone explains most relationship problems. People do not treat you how you wish to be treated. They treat you how you allow them to treat you. Not consciously, not maliciously, structurally. Human beings test edges. They probe limits. They explore what is permitted. Just like water. Water does not ask where it may flow. It flows until it meets resistance. Where there is no resistance, there is overflow. This is why some people interrupt you constantly, why they speak over you, why they dump responsibilities on you, why they take your time for granted. Not because they're monsters, but because the lines are faint, and faint lines invite crossing. Here is the truth most people avoid. Every time you fail to correct behavior, you teach it. Silence is instruction. Tolerance is endorsement. Endurance is permission. You may not say yes out loud, but your inaction says it for you. Now understand this. People are not mind readers. They respond to feedback. Boundaries are feedback. Clear, immediate, consistent. Without that feedback, people default to convenience, and convenience rarely respects you. This chapter is where accountability shifts. You stop blaming people for behavior you never corrected. You stop hoping others will just know. You stop confusing internal limits with external reality. A boundary in your head is not a boundary in the world. Only enforced lines count. Now let's be precise. Correction does not mean confrontation. It does not mean aggression. It does not mean emotional speeches. Correction is simple. It is naming the line. That doesn't work for me. I'm not available for that. Please don't speak to me that way. I'll respond later. Short, neutral, firm. No explanation, no apology. You are not punishing, you are defining, and definition is stabilizing. Here is where people get stuck. They wait too long. They let behavior repeat. They let irritation build. They let resentment accumulate. Then, finally, they explode. That explosion confuses everyone, because the line was never drawn when it mattered. Early correction prevents dramatic confrontation. Boundaries are most effective when they are small and immediate. Think of a fence. A low fence guides behavior gently. A missing fence causes chaos. A sudden wall feels hostile. Your goal is not walls. Your goal is consistent lines. Now listen carefully. People will test your boundaries. That is not disrespect. That is calibration. They want to know if the line is real. If you hold it, behavior adjusts. If you waver, the test repeats. Consistency is respect. Not volume, not intensity. Consistency. This is why saying something once and then allowing the violation teaches nothing. You must match words with behavior. If you say you are unavailable after 9 p.m., but you respond anyway, you erased the boundary. If you say you don't tolerate disrespect, but you stay silent, you approved it. Boundaries are not what you say, they are what you enforce. Now, let's address the fear underneath all of this. The fear of being disliked. Here is the reality. You are already being evaluated. People already have opinions. What changes is whether you are respected. Respect does not require universal approval. It requires clarity. Some people will dislike your boundaries. That does not mean they dislike you. It means your structure inconveniences them. And inconvenience is not harm. People who rely on your lack of structure will resist structure. People who respect you will adapt. That reaction reveals everything. Boundaries act as a filter. They separate those who value you from those who use you. This is not harsh. It is honest. Now, here is the behavioral shift this chapter demands. Stop waiting for people to change. Start changing what you tolerate. Stop hoping for awareness. Start providing feedback. Stop internalizing frustration. Start externalizing limits. Calmly, clearly, once. And then repeat when necessary. No anger, no justification. Just structure. Something powerful happens when you do this. Your presence changes. People sense solidity. They feel the edges, and they adjust without drama. Because clarity removes ambiguity. Ambiguity invites testing. Clarity ends it. This chapter is not about controlling others. It is about controlling access. Who gets your time? Who gets your energy? Who gets your attention? Control access, and behavior follows. Lose control of access, and you lose authority. Authority is not dominance. It is definition. You define the shape of your life. Others move within it, or they leave. Both outcomes restore order. In the next chapter, we will destroy one of the most dangerous habits undermining boundaries: over-explaining. Because the more you explain their boundaries, the weaker they become.
Chapter 5. Boundaries are not explained, they're enforced. The fastest way to weaken a boundary is to explain it. Read that again. The more you explain, the more negotiable your boundary becomes. Explanation invites debate. Debate invites persuasion. Persuasion invites collapse. Strong boundaries do not argue for their existence. They exist. Most people don't realize this, so they talk themselves out of protection. They justify, they rationalize, they soften. They say things like, "I'm just really busy right now. I hope you understand. I feel bad, but I don't usually do this, but." Each sentence is an opening. Each word is a crack. And people walk straight through it. Here is the truth. You do not owe anyone a story for your limits. Limits are not court cases. You do not need evidence. You do not need approval. You need enforcement. Over-explaining is a symptom of insecurity. It means you are still asking for permission. Permission to rest. Permission to say no. Permission to choose yourself. But adults do not need permission to protect their lives. They need structure. Boundaries lose power when they become emotional monologues. They gain power when they are short, neutral, and final. Consider the difference. I can't help you this weekend because I've been really overwhelmed lately and I need some time to recover, and I hope you're not upset. Versus, I'm not available this weekend. Same message, different authority. One invites negotiation, the other ends it. Boundaries are not persuasive speeches. They are closing statements. Now let's address the fear underneath explanation. The fear of being misunderstood. Here is the reality. People will misunderstand you no matter what. Explanation does not prevent misunderstanding. It only delays enforcement. Worse, it trains people to expect emotional labor with every limit. They learn that if they push, you'll explain more, so they push. Not because they're cruel, because it works. You trained them. This is why some people never respect your no. They've learned it's temporary. They've learned persistence pays. That ends when explanations stop. Clarity replaces performance. Now listen carefully. You do not need to convince people your boundary is valid. If it works for you, it is valid. Validation comes from alignment, not agreement. And alignment does not require discussion. Boundaries are logistical decisions, not emotional debates. They answer practical questions. Is this allowed? Is this available? Is this acceptable? Yes or no. Anything beyond that is commentary. Now here is where people panic. They think enforcement means being harsh. It doesn't. It means being consistent. You can be calm and immovable at the same time. You can be polite and final at the same time. You can be warm and firm at the same time. Tone does not replace structure. Structure replaces chaos. Now here is the behavioral shift this chapter demands. Replace explanations with statements. Not dramatic statements, not defensive statements. Simple ones. I'm not discussing that. That doesn't work for me. I've decided not to. I'm unavailable. Say it once. If questioned, repeat it. Not louder, not longer, just again. Repetition is enforcement. This feels uncomfortable at first because you are used to managing reactions. You are used to smoothing emotions. You are used to carrying the discomfort for everyone else. Boundaries transfer discomfort back where it belongs. And that discomfort teaches. When you stop explaining, something powerful happens. People reveal their intentions. Those who respect you adjust quickly. Those who don't escalate. Both outcomes give you clarity. Escalation is not proof you are wrong. It is proof the old pattern is breaking. Stand still. Do not justify. Do not argue. Do not collapse. Silence after a boundary is a boundary. Now understand this deeply. Explanations feel kind, but they are dishonest. They imply the boundary is flexible. They imply circumstances could change it. They imply negotiation is possible. If it isn't, don't imply it. Honesty is clean. I'm not available. I'm not interested. No. That honesty saves time. It saves energy. It saves resentment. This chapter is where authority becomes visible. Not loud authority, quiet authority. The kind that doesn't rush, doesn't chase, doesn't convince. Because real boundaries don't persuade, they filter. They allow the aligned to stay. They remove the misaligned automatically. This is not about being cold. It is about being clear. Clarity is kindness without self-betrayal. And without clarity, boundaries decay. In the next chapter, we will confront the emotional tax that keeps most people from enforcing boundaries: guilt.
Because guilt is not a sign you're wrong. It is the price of changing your structure, and it must be paid.
Chapter 6. Guilt is the price of self-respect. If you wait to set boundaries until you feel comfortable, you never will. Because boundaries trigger guilt. And guilt is not a warning sign. It is a withdrawal symptom. You are withdrawing from an old identity. The identity of being available. The identity of being agreeable. The identity of being needed to feel worthy. When you change structure, the nervous system protests. That protest is guilt. Most people misinterpret it. They think guilt means they are doing something wrong. It doesn't. It means they are doing something new. Here is the truth that frees you. Guilt is not a moral compass. It is a conditioning response. It was installed early. Every time you were praised for sacrificing. Every time you were rewarded for compliance. Every time you were punished for saying no. Your system learned self-abandonment equals safety. So when you stop abandoning yourself, guilt appears. Not because you are wrong, but because you are unfamiliar. Guilt is the echo of old rules. Rules that no longer serve you. Now listen carefully. If you have lived without boundaries, guilt will show up the moment you enforce one. That does not mean stop. That means continue. Guilt is the toll for crossing into self-respect. And tolls are paid once. If you turn back, you pay forever. Most people retreat at the first wave of guilt. They apologize for their boundary. They soften it. They undo it. And the system learns guilt works. So it comes back stronger next time. But if you hold the line, something shifts. The guilt fades. Because the nervous system adapts to structure. What once felt selfish starts to feel normal. What once felt cruel starts to feel clean. This is why boundaries feel hardest at the beginning. Not because they're wrong, because they're unfamiliar. Now let's dismantle the lies guilt tells you. Lie 1, you're hurting people. Setting a boundary does not harm healthy people. It may disappoint them, it may inconvenience them. Discomfort is not damage. Adults can handle disappointment. Lie 2, you're being selfish. Selfishness takes without regard. Boundaries simply stop overgiving. They return responsibility to its rightful owner. Lie 3, you'll lose people. Yes, and that is not failure. That is filtration. Anyone who only stays when you overextend was never aligned. Now here is the deeper truth. Guilt often protects others from accountability. When you remove yourself as the buffer, others must face consequences. That makes you feel guilty. But guilt does not mean you caused harm. It means you stopped preventing it. And that distinction matters. You are not responsible for managing other adults' emotions. You are responsible for managing your life. Now here is the behavioral shift this chapter demands. Stop treating guilt as an emergency. Treat it as weather. Notice it. Allow it. Do not obey it.
You do not need to eliminate guilt to act correctly. You need to act correctly despite guilt. This is maturity. Every time you hold a boundary through guilt, you train your nervous system. You teach it, this is safe. This is allowed. This is who we are now. Over time, guilt loses authority because structure replaces fear. Now let's talk about a critical mistake. People try to explain away guilt. They intellectualize it. They analyze it. They seek reassurance. That keeps guilt alive. The cure is action. Clear action, consistent action. Each time you enforce a boundary and survive the guilt, you weaken it. Each time you retreat, you strengthen it. This is not about becoming unfeeling. It is about becoming regulated. Regulated people can feel guilt without obeying it. Dysregulated people are ruled by it. This is where self-respect is forged. Not in confidence, not in motivation, in discomfort. Self-respect is built when you keep promises to yourself, even when it feels bad. Especially when it feels bad. Now hear this clearly. You do not need everyone to approve of your boundaries. You need yourself to trust you. And trust is built through consistency. If you betray your limits to avoid guilt, you teach yourself that your needs are negotiable. If you hold your limits, you teach yourself that you are reliable. Reliability creates inner stability. Inner stability creates outer authority. This chapter is not about becoming harder. It is about becoming solid. Solid people do not collapse under guilt. They let it pass. They remain. And in remaining, they change their lives. In the next chapter, we will move from emotion to logistics. Because one of the most violated boundaries is also the most sacred. Your time. And how you protect time determines the shape of your entire future.
Chapter 7. Your time is a sacred space. Time is not money. Money can be replaced. Time cannot. Every time you give your time away carelessly, you are not being generous. You are being reckless. Time is the most violated boundary because it is the least defended. People protect their wallets, they protect their phones, they protect their homes, but they leave their time wide open. Always available, always flexible, always quick, and that is why life feels rushed, shallow, and fragmented. Your time is not empty space. It is sacred space. Whatever enters it shapes you, your habits, your thoughts, your future. This chapter demands a brutal realization. If you do not control your time, other people will. Not out of malice, out of convenience. Because unclaimed space is always occupied. Now listen carefully. Every yes is not just a commitment. It is a subtraction. When you say yes to something, you say no to something else, often without realizing it. You say no to rest, no to focus, no to progress, no to yourself. Time misuse is silent self-betrayal, and it compounds. Most people don't lose their future in one decision. They lose it in 1,000 small yeses. Yes to interruptions. Yes to unnecessary meetings. Yes to favors that drain them. Yes to conversations that go nowhere. And then they wonder why nothing changes. Your calendar tells the truth. Not your intentions, not your goals, your calendar. What you schedule is what you value. What you protect is what grows. This is why powerful people are ruthless with time. Not rude, not arrogant, precise. They decide in advance what deserves space. Everything else is noise. Now let's name the most common time violations. First, urgency without importance. Just because something is urgent does not mean it is important. Urgency is often manufactured. Importance is intentional. When you treat every request as urgent, you surrender control. Second, availability without structure. If you do not define when you are available, you are always available. That destroys focus. Deep work requires uninterrupted time. So does healing. So does growth. Third, reactive scheduling. You let others fill your calendar. You respond instead of design. And then you feel trapped inside a life you didn't choose. Now hear this clearly. Time boundaries are identity boundaries. How you spend your time is who you are becoming. Every hour is a vote. Cast enough votes for distraction and you become scattered. Cast enough votes for focus and you become powerful. This chapter is not asking you to become rigid. It is asking you to become deliberate. Deliberate people don't rush. They decide. Now here is the behavioral shift this chapter demands. Stop saying, "I'm busy." Busy is a vague excuse. Start saying, "That's not a priority." That statement is honest. Not everything deserves access to your time, including people, including habits, including obligations you never chose consciously. You must create non-negotiable time. Time that is protected by default. Time that is not explained, not justified, not negotiated. This is sacred time. Time for focus, time for recovery, time for growth. If it's movable, it's vulnerable. Protect it first. Everything else fits around it or doesn't. This will feel uncomfortable. People will push. They will question. They will guilt. They will test. Hold the line. Time boundaries are trained, not announced. Once people learn your availability has shape, they adapt, or they disappear. Both outcomes restore order. Now understand this deeply. You cannot build a meaningful life in fragments. Constant interruption destroys depth. Depth requires silence. Silence requires boundaries. If you want peace, protect time. If you want progress, protect time. If you want dignity, protect time. This is not selfish. It is responsible. Because a scattered life helps no one. A structured life creates value. This chapter connects everything so far. Energy leaks through time violations. Resentment grows through time misuse. Guilt appears when time is reclaimed. Time is where boundaries become visible. How you guard it tells the world who you are, and more importantly, it tells you. In the next chapter, we go inward, because even if you protect your time, you can still be drained, not by events, but by emotions that do not belong to you. Emotional boundaries are the final layer of containment, and without them, no amount of scheduling will save you.
Chapter 8. Emotional Boundaries. Protect your inner order. You can protect your time. You can protect your schedule and still feel completely drained, because not all invasions are external. Some are emotional. Emotional boundaries are the most misunderstood and the most violated, because emotions feel personal, urgent, contagious, and without boundaries, you absorb what is not yours. Other people's anxiety, other people's anger, other people's disappointment. You carry it, and then you wonder why you feel heavy for no clear reason. Here is the truth. You are not required to feel everything that is presented to you. Feeling everything is not empathy. It is enmeshment.
Empathy understands, enmeshment absorbs, and absorption destroys inner order. Your emotional state is a private space, sacred space, and without boundaries, it becomes a public dumping ground. Now listen carefully. Not every emotion directed at you is about you, but if you react to all of them, they become yours. This is how people lose stability. They let others decide their internal weather. A bad mood enters the room and suddenly it's yours. Someone complains and your energy drops. Someone is angry and you feel responsible to fix it. That is not compassion. That is boundary collapse. Emotional boundaries say, I see you, I hear you, I am not carrying this. That distinction is everything. Now let's name the most common emotional boundary failures. First, emotional rescuing. You rush to soothe discomfort that isn't yours. You solve problems people haven't asked you to solve. You take responsibility for outcomes you don't control. This trains dependency and drains you. Second, emotional reactivity. You respond immediately to tone, mood, and tension. You let provocation pull you off center. That hands control of your state to others. Third, emotional over-identification. You confuse understanding with agreement. You feel guilty for not feeling what others feel. That erases self. Now hear this clearly. You are allowed to remain calm when others are upset. You are allowed to be steady when others are chaotic. You are allowed to let people experience their emotions fully without interfering. In fact, that is respect, because emotions are teachers, and when you steal the lesson, growth stops. This is especially important in close relationships. Love does not mean emotional fusion. Fusion suffocates. Love requires two separate nervous systems, two stable centers. Without emotional boundaries, relationships become exhausting. One person regulates for both, and that always fails. Now here is the behavioral shift this chapter demands. Stop asking, how can I fix this? Start asking, is this mine to carry? If it is not yours, do not pick it up. You can listen without absorbing. You can care without collapsing. You can support without sacrificing stability. This requires pause. Pause before responding. Pause before reacting. Pause before fixing. That pause is a boundary. Now let's address a major fear. People worry emotional boundaries make them cold. They don't. They make you safe. Unsafe people overreact. Safe people remain present. Presence is not panic. Presence is grounded attention, and grounded attention is healing. But you cannot be grounded if you are emotionally flooded. Boundaries keep you dry. Now understand this deeply. Your inner order matters more than being liked. Because without inner order, you lose authority over yourself. And when you lose authority over yourself, everything else collapses. Emotional boundaries are not about control. They are about ownership. Ownership of your state. Ownership of your reactions. Ownership of your peace. No one else gets that by default. Access must be earned. Now here is a critical practice. Name emotions silently. This is theirs. This is not mine. I do not need to respond immediately. Naming creates distance. Distance creates choice. Choice restores power. Over time, something changes. You stop being the emotional sponge. You stop being the regulator. You stop being drained. And people feel it. They feel your steadiness. Some will be comforted by it. Some will be threatened by it.
Both reactions are information, because emotional boundaries reveal dynamics. They show who relied on your instability to feel okay. That is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is order. This chapter completes a layer of protection. Time boundaries protect your future. Energy boundaries protect your capacity. Emotional boundaries protect your inner world. Without inner order, outer order is meaningless. And with inner order, chaos loses power over you. In the next chapter, we will face an inevitable consequence of boundaries: loss. Because when you draw lines, not everyone stays, and that is not a tragedy. It is alignment.
Chapter 9. When you draw lines, some people will disappear. Boundaries clarify, and clarity always reveals truth. When you draw lines, some people adjust. Some people resist. Some people leave. That outcome is not accidental. It is diagnostic. Boundaries expose dynamics that were hidden by your compliance. They reveal who respected you and who relied on your lack of structure. This is the chapter where most people panic. They say, "I set a boundary and now everything feels different." Yes, different is the point. You cannot change structure without changing relationships, and you should not try to. Because not every connection was built on mutual respect. Some were built on access, unlimited access to your time, unlimited access to your energy, unlimited access to your emotional labor. When that access ends, the relationship changes or ends. That is not loss. That is truth arriving. Now listen carefully. People who value you will adapt to your boundaries. They may be surprised. They may need time, but they adjust. People who only valued what you provided will protest. They will guilt you. They will criticize. They will accuse you of changing. They are right. You are changing. You are becoming defined. And definition removes ambiguity. Ambiguity is where unhealthy dynamics hide. Now let's address the fear underneath loss, the fear of being alone. Here is the truth. You were already alone in relationships that required self-erasure. You were present but unseen, giving but unsupported, available but unprotected. Boundaries do not create loneliness, they reveal it. And revelation is the first step to real connection. You cannot build intimacy on self-betrayal. It rots from the inside. Real connection requires two solid people, two people with edges, two people who choose each other freely, not out of obligation. This chapter demands a reframe. Loss after boundaries is not rejection. It is a misalignment being corrected. It is structure doing its job. Now here is something most people don't expect. Some people won't leave loudly. They will fade. They will stop calling, stop inviting, stop engaging. That silence can hurt because it confirms something painful. They were there for access, not for you. Let that information land. Do not chase. Do not explain. Do not collapse. Chasing erases the boundary. Hold the line. Space reveals character. Those who return do so with respect. Those who disappear free you. Both outcomes are gifts. Now understand this deeply. Your nervous system will interpret loss as danger. That is normal. Humans are wired for belonging. But belonging that requires self-erasure is not safety. It is captivity. Boundaries trade false belonging for real alignment. That trade feels scary until you experience the peace of not being drained.
until you feel the stability of relationships that don't require performance. Until you realize how much energy you were spending maintaining imbalance. Now here is the behavioral shift this chapter demands. Stop measuring success by how many people stay. Start measuring it by how you feel in your body. Do you feel calm, clear, grounded, or tense, drained, resentful? Your body knows when structure is correct. Trust it. Now let's talk about grief. You may grieve people who are still alive, people you hoped would adapt but didn't. That grief is real. Feel it. But do not let grief undo your boundaries. Grief does not mean retreat. It means transition. You are transitioning into a more truthful life. Truth requires fewer people, but better ones. This is where self-respect becomes visible. You choose alignment over attachment, structure over nostalgia, clarity over chaos. And something surprising happens. New people arrive. People who recognize your structure, who respect your limits, who don't push. Because healthy people are attracted to definition. They feel safe around it. Chaos seeks openness. Health seeks structure. This chapter is not about pushing people away. It is about letting reality sort itself. Boundaries do not destroy relationships. They destroy illusions. And illusions cannot be saved. Only truth can. In the final chapter, we will integrate everything. Because boundaries are not a tactic. They are an identity, a way of being, a way of moving through the world. And once you become a structured human being, you never return to chaos.
Chapter 10. Become a structured human being. Boundaries are not something you do. They are something you become. If you treat boundaries as a technique, you will abandon them under pressure. If you treat them as an identity, they become permanent. This final chapter is not about adding rules. It is about changing form. You are not chaotic. You were unstructured. And structure is learned. A structured human being does not negotiate their worth daily. They do not wake up and decide whether to protect themselves. Protection is built in, automatic, just like a spine. This is what separates powerful people from exhausted ones. Not talent, not intelligence, not effort. Structure. Structured people move differently. They do not rush. They do not over-explain. They do not chase. They have internal rules, quiet rules, non-negotiable rules. Rules that govern how they give, respond, engage, and withdraw. These rules are not announced. They are lived. Now listen carefully. Structure is self-respect made visible. Without structure, self-respect is just an idea. With structure, it becomes behavior, and behavior trains the world. Now, let's define what a structured human being actually looks like. A structured person has standards, not preferences. Standards. Preferences change with mood. Standards remain. They know what they tolerate, what they do not, what they engage with, what they ignore. They do not debate these internally every time. Decision fatigue disappears. Clarity replaces chaos. Second, a structured person has non-negotiables, time blocks that are protected, energy that is reserved, emotional lines that are not crossed. They do not see how they feel. They already decided.
Third, a structured person does not manage reactions. They allow reactions. They do not collapse when someone is upset. They do not perform to be liked. They do not panic when faced with resistance. They remain because they are rooted. This is what structure ultimately creates, rootedness. Now, understand this. Structure is not rigidity. It is reliability. Rigid people break. Structured people hold. Structure allows flexibility without collapse. You can bend without losing form. This is why structured people appear calm even in chaos. They are not calm because nothing is happening. They are calm because nothing inside them is leaking. Now, here is the final behavioral shift this book demands. Stop asking, "What should I do in this situation?" Start asking, "Who am I now?" Because behavior flows from identity. If you see yourself as the helper, the fixer, the nice one, the always available one, your boundaries will fail under pressure. But if you see yourself as a defined person, a contained person, a self-respecting person, your behavior will follow automatically. This is the real work, identity alignment. You are not setting boundaries anymore. You are living inside them. Now let's talk about permanence. Boundaries are not something you set once. They are something you reinforce daily, not aggressively, not emotionally, structurally. Through what you respond to, through what you ignore, through what you repeat, through what you refuse. Over time, something powerful happens. People stop testing because the lines are clear. Your life becomes quieter, not empty, focused, not lonely, intentional, not rigid, stable. This is the reward of structure. Peace without effort, energy without recovery cycles, respect without demand. This is what sacred geometry means, invisible lines that hold everything in place. Your time, your energy, your emotions, your dignity. You are no longer an open field. You are a defined space, and defined spaces are protected naturally. Now, hear this final truth. Chaos will always try to return. Old patterns will knock. Old guilt will whisper. Old dynamics will test. That does not mean you failed. It means structure is being checked. Hold. Do not explain. Do not justify. Do not retreat. Structure strengthens with pressure, just like bone. You are not becoming colder. You are becoming clearer. You are not losing people. You are losing noise. You are not limiting life. You are giving it shape. And a life with shape can hold power. This audiobook was not about boundaries. It was about dignity. Boundaries are simply how dignity survives in the real world. Live defined. Live contained. Live structured. Because boundaries are not walls. They are sacred geometry. And once you become a structured human being, you never return to chaos.
Your life has a shape now. Whether you realized it or not, you have been living inside invisible lines your entire life. The difference is this. Before, those lines were drawn by fear, by guilt, by obligation, by other people's expectations. Now they are drawn by you. Boundaries are not about control. They are about order. And order is what turns chaos into power. Without boundaries, your energy leaks, Your time disappears. Your dignity erodes. With boundaries, everything stabilizes. You become calm, not because life is easy, but because nothing unnecessary has access to you. You become strong, not because you dominate, but because you are defined. From this moment forward, stop asking, how do I keep everyone comfortable? Start asking, what must be protected? Protect your time. Protect your energy. Protect your inner order. Do not explain your limits. Do not apologize for your structure. Do not retreat when guilt appears. Guilt is the toll. Pay it once, because the price of no boundaries is paid forever. Your challenge is simple and non-negotiable. Today, identify one line you have been avoiding, one boundary you know must exist, and enforce it calmly, cleanly, without apology. Do not announce it, live it. Because a life without structure collapses, and a life with structure holds power. Boundaries are not walls. They are sacred geometry. And now, you are no longer an open field. You are a defined space.